Hey guys, okay, so I know, I said I would never participate in this kind of child exploitation, but they were kind of extenuating circumstances. So what happened was, where I'm staying right now, I don't have internet, so I go to the library to do my work, and I meet clients in like cafes and what have you. So anyway, I was at the library working today because I have like a ton of things to do. And I got this phone call. And the phone call was really hard to hear because the person who had called me, who shall remain nameless, and he actually helped me get a lot of video because he's taller than me, but he called me and all I could hear was this honking in the background. And he's like, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?" And of course I'm telling him, I can kind of hear you, but I'm not sure, like, what the hell are you doing? So he told me that he was down at the Greta Thunberg, the rally or protest or whatever you want to call it, down at the Alberta legislature, which is in the city that I happen to be in right now, Edmonton, Alberta. And he said there's like this, he called it a truck train, but it's the, what is it called? United We Roll. That whole convoy that happened. There were those trucks there, and there were like anti-protesters there. So I hung up from him because I couldn't hear him anymore, and I decided, like on a whim, I'm going to go down and I'm going to see what's going on because this is crazy. I couldn't believe, like I could see some anti climate crisis protesters, but the convoy, it was like, you're kidding me, this is awesome. So I went down, hopped a bus, got on the LRT because I was told like traffic's crazy, don't try to get down here by like a cab or anything, just get on the LRT and come through the underground. So that's what I did, and he met me and we went up and we had a look at what was going on, and it was so crazy. There was probably, the guy I was with is actually, he's better at getting numbers than I am, and he figures there were over 20,000 people there. Now, from what I was seeing, I would say there's probably 1/3 of them were anti-climate crisis protesters. So essentially our guys, and the other 2/3 were climate crazies. Now, not all of them were crazy. I shouldn't say that, but there was some crazy stuff that was going on because I was standing there watching so much of it. It was wow. So I got there just in time. I thought for sure, I'm like panicking the whole way, going, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss everything because like traffic's bad, and I had to come from like one end of the city to get downtown. It was just madness. So, and I know I'm talking a mile a minute, I'm sorry, but it was like such a wild day. So, okay, I get down there, and just as I get there, the person I was meeting joined me and brought me like down into where all of the crazy stuff was happening. Brought me up to like as close as really could be gotten, and then I gave him my phone so that he could take some of the video, but he had already gotten me a bunch of footage on his phone, but his phone was dying. So we got as much footage as we possibly could between the two of us. I did give him my phone, like I said, because he's taller than me, so and he could get up into areas that I couldn't get up into. So I sent him on the way, and we got parts of Greta Thunberg's speech. But the thing that I was really interested in was the people that kept coming up to the police, because I was standing beside two sheriffs, and the people that kept coming up were the climate people who were complaining that the other side, let's call them the oil and gas people and the Greenies, okay? We'll just make that easier. So the Greenies were coming up and complaining that the oil and gas people were being too loud and they should be forced to leave. So, and that was basically like the whole thing. And then at one point, people started to sort of moving around, and the speeches were over. And and Chubby Cree actually performed. It was wonderful. I thought it was brilliant. But that was another thing that bothered me. I know I'm all over the place, just bear with me. after Greta had spoken, there was a lot of people that just started leaving, even though they knew Chubby Cree was going to perform again. So it seemed like there was a lot of this like celebrity hero worship kind of garbage that was going on, which was really disappointing. But anyway, um, so that happened, and after Chubby Cree had finished and all the speeches and everything were done, then there was a guy that was sort of behind and beside me, and he started going off on somebody who he was accusing of being an oil executive. And he was like really irate, and like this guy that was the oil executive was just minding his own business, standing over on the other side, not anywhere near anyone. But yeah, he's like, oh, by the way you're dressed, I can tell you're like a bigwig oil executive. It's like, so isn't he allowed to be here too? It was crazy. And then, okay, so we wound up, after a lot of things had like the speeches were done, there was a bunch of people who had left. We moved closer to where the action was happening. I was actually asked how close I wanted to get, and I was like, take me down the middle. He's like, well, what side do you want to be on, the Greenies or the oil people? And it's like, down the middle. I don't want to take sides. I mean, y'all know what side I'm on, but I'm on the side of common sense, but which I suppose in some ways is down the middle. So anyway, I come down there, and he like, the person I was with kind of kept me where he thought I was closer to the oil and gas people, because he knows where I stand. And he actually at one point brought the dude with the megaphone to me, and he's like, say something. And I'm like, yeah, no, because I had just been circled by Antiphon. So here's the thing that I was like so amped up about, and still am. So I'm seeing these people like kind of circling me, and they're all dressed in dark things, and they've got like little kerchiefs sort of down here. And all of a sudden the kerchiefs started moving up to here. And I'm like, huh, this is interesting. There's a whole bunch of them that kind of circled around me, and they kept eyeing me up. And I'm like, I have 100 subscribers. You have no idea who I am. So it's not that. I couldn't possibly have offended you that you know of. But anyway, so these guys are like circling me and keep eyeing me up, and I'm like, what is going on? And then the next thing, and I'm thinking, okay, whenever they started pulling their masks up, I'm going, stuff's gonna get real here, because the oil and gas people had kind of come into the center area, and then there were protesters like directly behind me that were yelling and screaming at them. They were both basically accusing each other of not having jobs and being, you know, living in each other's mom's basements or something. It was stupid. But anyway, so as the Antifa people come, then all of a sudden I see more people dressed in black, but this time it was security and police, like the sheriffs and the police. And I think there was like a combination of sheriff, police, and security, so that there was like a whole slew of these guys, but they all came with bicycles, and they sort of almost interlocked their bicycles and made a fence between the oil and gas people and the Greenies. So totally cool. And I was sort of in between the two with Antifa all around me, because, you know, I'm special like that, I guess. It was wild. I have part of the footage now, so I'm going to work on that. And once I get the rest of the footage, which I should get, I should have it actually for Monday. So hopefully I'll have something put together for Monday for you guys so that you can see what actually happened. But one thing I want to point out, because I don't know what's going to be said by other people who were there, but as an observer and trying to be as unbiased as possible, despite the fact that, like I said, you all know my biases, there was no violence. There were threats, and there were like yelling at each other, and, you know, the usual stuff that happens, but there was no actual violence. And the police and security were very fair. There was one woman that was complaining. She was one of the oil and gas people, and she had sort of come over to where the Greenies were, and was kind of, they had kind of gotten in her face, so she got in their face, and then the police came in and sort of got in between the two of them, told her that it was time for her to back off. And she started complaining that they weren't telling the Greenies to back off. And he said, look, they're leaving, because, yeah, they're being told to leave as well. And that is exactly what happened. So the police, hats off to them. They did a fantastic job. They intervened, I think, at just exactly the right time. They let everybody kind of, you know, make their noises and stuff, and then they broke it up whenever it was appropriate to break it up. So hats off to the Edmonton police force, sheriff, security, the whole gang. You did a fantastic job. Totally impressed. And anybody that wants to say different, well, I don't know where they were at, because I was just observing. I was just watching everything that was going on. And then afterwards, we were leaving, and there was the picture, which you'll have seen at the beginning of this video, the little thumbnail. That is of me, and like at the beginning of this video, that was me right by the truck that, well, one of them, there's two. And I got pictures of me with two of them, and that was the United We Roll Convoy trucks that were there. So totally cool experience. I can see me going to a lot more of these kinds of things. It was just exhilarating, and you know, to me the biggest thing, and I will come back to this time and time again, is until we start talking to each other, not yelling at each other, not going at cross purposes, but until we actually start talking to each other and figuring out these issues, we're not going to win anything. And that was one of the things that I noticed about the whole deal, was that there were a lot of people that seemed to be there more for the prestige of saying that they were there. I think it was less about trying to come up with solutions and more about making a lot of noise, which is unfortunate, because we do have issues with pollution. We do have things that we need to do to be better caretakers of this planet. But at the same time, you can't just flick a switch and go, we don't need oil and gas anymore. And I am definitely a pipeline proponent, in case there is any question, because here to me is the big thing. What's worse, a pipeline that goes across the country and makes sure everybody has the fuel that they need until we can move on to green energy, or tankers crossing the ocean filled with oil that's also coming from countries that are questionable when it comes to human rights? So you have clean, ethical oil coming out of Alberta that we're doing our best to make cleaner and cleaner every time we do it, because that's, you know, our thing in Canada, is to do things as cleanly as possible. Or you can ship it across the ocean. To me, logically, it makes more sense to essentially buy local. And that's the whole thing. I mean, these Greenies, they talk about buying local when it comes to produce, but not when it comes to energy. And that's part of the disconnect that's happening. And the disconnect is happening because there's a lot of money involved. And the money that's involved is helping to kind of push an agenda that isn't fair and has nothing to do with actually fixing the actual problems that we have. So anyway, I'm going to stop there because I've gone on too long already, and I'm like a total basket case right now. But I had a really good time. It was fun, and I will do far more of these kinds of things if I ever get the opportunity, because wow, it was cool. And I will bring that video to you so you can see for yourself what happened. Well, as much of it as we were able to catch on tape, or on digits. I'm useless when it comes to, you know, this whole knowing the language of the current year. Anyway, yeah, isn't that Trudeau's line? Whatever. Anyway, you guys know what I mean. Take care. Have a great election. Should be coming up on Monday, unless some craziness happens, and I'm still not ruling that out. Anyway, take care. Make sure you go out and vote. I don't care, but I do, who you go vote for. Just make a good choice and use your voice. That's what democracy is all about. Take care.
Alligator oil! Alligator oil! Oh, there's the green juicer. Oil shoes, oil shoes. Hey, what about your sign there, guys? Made with oil. Yeah. What about the wheels on your little surfboard, your little skateboard there? Might be made with oil. They want a lot more. Love that dragon!
Get your share. Freedom of speech. Get your share. Freedom of speech. Get your share.